Hi guys, I'm Kay Smith and welcome back to another Outlier Podcast, where we share inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things outside their comfort zone in a bid to help other outliers and entrepreneurs do the same. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing the key takeaways from Patrick Janin's Outlier episode from the incredible Raiwasa resort in Fiji. And at the end, we're going to do a meditation based on values. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Kay. Great to be here. In particular, today, one of my favorite interviews with Patrick, such a committed businessman who had very high standards, very high values. So looking forward to sharing the message.
Yeah, that really comes across in his interview. He's very, very well spoken. He really has incredible power of vision and intention, which is the point that we're going to be discussing first. And it really, really comes through when he's speaking. Yeah,
amazing story. If you haven't watched it yet, you can click the link here. It's basically following the sudden and tragic death of his business partner, self-confessed workaholic Patrick Janin sold his company, packed up his family, and took off around the world to find out why there is a lot more to life than work. During his travels, Patrick was so uninspired by various accommodation experiences that he decided to take all of what he did like about the experiences and bottle them into a world-class 6-star resort. With an outlier location that's a 1-hour flight from the mainland of Fiji, on an island that only a small percentage of tourists ever visit, and the language and cultural differences of the Fijian people, Patrick has managed to create the Raiwasa Resort, the winner of 2 consecutive World Boutique Hotel Awards. And most of it was performed from his home in Steamboat Springs in the USA, which is 10,000 kilometers away from Fiji. This is a story of dreaming big, and that sums up Patrick in a nutshell.
Amazing. So I can't really wait to go through these points because it's a little bit different to some of the other Outlier episodes that we've gone across, because a lot of those have been about passion and working hard to retrieve your dreams, which of course Patrick does, but really Patrick has something else as well that makes him quite unique as an outlier.
Absolutely. So we've got 5 major points today, or 6 really key points that I want to share. But I guess something I've thought about before today was, and through my personal experience with dealing with Patrick and seeing how he's been before, during, and after our experience of filming at Raiwasa, is he has very high standards. So in order to be an outlier in any field, whether it be sport, academia, or business, or even relationships or whatever, life in general, you've got to have a high standards or set of high standards that give you almost a benchmark to aspire to on a daily basis. And so I would see Patrick get up at 3 a.m. to shoot photos of the stars. He'd be up with us until 11 p.m. And so he literally, I know he talks about it as being a workaholic. I call him a passionaholic. He's that passionate about his work, but also just his standards that I feel, we've had other outliers in the series. Their standards, not quite as high as that, they certain things that they didn't attribute to performing as part of the process, whereas Patrick's gone above and beyond. So before we start, the key is standards. If you really want to be the best in the world at anything, you've really got to set some high standards and then take action on them on a daily basis to ensure that you're in alignment with them. But okay, that then leads me to the first learning that we had from Patrick, and we've reinforced this many times. It's the power of vision and intention. And Patrick had a poster of Fiji on his wall as a child. And somehow he just knew that he'd be spending time there. Now, it wasn't a case of choosing to put the poster of Fiji on the wall. It just happened to be on the wall. But then he had an intuitive knowing that somehow that had a meaning for him. So, we talk about this at Outlier, that a couple of our philosophies is that your ideal reality already exists, right? So if you look at the poster, it was literally showing Patrick about his ideal reality, and it was already existing. And then over the years of feeling like he wanted to be part of the Pacific and Fiji in some way, then allowed him to resonate with it more. And then eventually it showed up. And we talk about that a lot. But essentially it's like this. In order to achieve anything, you've got to see it in your mind with absolute clarity and feel it in your body with absolute certainty as often as you can. So if you've got a vision for a business, the key is see it with clarity, feel it with certainty as often as you can, as if it already exists. And we've talked about this multiple times. It does already exist. And then eventually, as long as you take the inspired action, it's going to show up a hell of a lot faster. So real short, but very, very powerful point, Kay, was the power of vision and intention, and knowing that your ideal reality already exists. And if you can see it in your mind with absolute clarity, feel it in your body with absolute certainty, and take action or inspired action on the impulses that you get, it will soon show up.
Incredible. And it's something that, a lot of people talk about vision boards and putting pictures of your ideal life on your wall and aspiring to be that. But it's almost like the universe just gave that to Patrick as a child and said, from such an early age, having that on his wall. And I can imagine as well, probably as a child, he'd be, I don't know, imagining what's going on that island. And so that's an interesting point as well, to have it at such an early age and then it becoming a reality as an adult.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like the power of imagination, right? He probably saw it every day, maybe before he went to bed, and thought, just started dreaming or imagining things that could have been going on the island. But again, what that does is just stimulate these amazing feelings that are depicting what it's going to be like when he gets there. So yeah, it's just a real hallmark, I guess, on the wall that's it's kind of a guiding light or a North Star that's ultimately going to guide him to that place. But it's a really interesting point, because point 2 here is the power of tragedy, and obviously happens to a lot of us entrepreneurs and people in general in life. But it wasn't until Patrick had his business partner dying, and obviously one of his best friends, that was what was the impetus to set him on the journey to Fiji. So he had to go through growing these awesome businesses in the medical industry or in the pharmaceutical industry, medical products, have the case with his friend or his business partner dying. And what's interesting there is, for a lot of people who face tragedy or adversity, it stops them in their tracks, whereas it set Patrick on a whole new journey. So the journey was, at that point, he went, if I died tomorrow, what would I really want to have achieved? So he kind of looked at business and went, well, it's not really the businesses. So he wanted to travel the world and experience the amazing things the world had to offer. So one thing we talk about at Outlier too, so you can either get, what do you call it? It can cause your business or your life to halt if you have a tragedy, or you can deal with the feelings associated. And often it's hard, especially in a grief scenario, especially real early on in the grief process. Or it can either shut you down for good, and it does. They suppress the feelings and end up depressed and then not taking action on anything. They feel like their life's ended in essence. Or you can clear the underlying feelings by feeling them, and that's another one of our philosophies. Feeling is healing. And very soon for Patrick, it became very clear that he wanted to go around the world. And he literally, that night of the death of his friend, went home and spoke to his wife and literally was like, I don't want this to be my end. I've been working my butt off, as was my business partner, and I don't want to have nothing to show for it after all of that hard work. So that's where he came home, spoke to the wife, and then they planned out the trip around the world. So I guess for the outliers out there, Kay, it's essentially asking yourself, well, I guess if you're feeling a bit of, we'll call it grief or loss or tragedy in your business or your life right now, maybe just list the feelings that you're feeling, and rather than trying to avoid them, tune into them. And we've got a process that we use for that, and we'll go through that in the meditation at the end. But if you can do that, literally the feelings dissipate after about 25, 30, 35 seconds, and then a lot more clarity will come to you. So what I'd recommend is list anything that's annoying you or is tragic or whatever in your life, any negative thoughts, feelings, beliefs that are holding you back, and then start to tune into how each one feels, feel it, and then take action on underneath. There's always an underlying action. And in Patrick's case, the action was, I want to go traveling the world. So the power of tragedy. It's actually a real positive thing if you choose to look at it like that.
And as you said, there's quite a few of our outlier stories have that underlying theme to it. So is there something that outliers can do? I mean, you've obviously just listed feelings and things that might be going through, and to feel them and work through them. But is there something that somebody can do that they're not going through any tragedy right now, however, or in big adversity, but they want to be more of an outlier life? How can they get there without having this shock of tragedy to figure out what they really want?
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't have to go through tragedy to be a success, right? So we use our same process to essentially, it's as simple as this. Your ideal reality already exists. So if it was to exist for you, close your eyes, imagine what it is. And then the most important part is, how would it feel as if it already existed? And obviously for a lot of people, you'd feel maybe free, you'd feel rewarded, you might feel satisfied, content, have clarity, etc. List all those feelings and then feel them. Put yourself in a position to feel them as often as you can. So there's two ways you can do that. One is through meditation. That's why we have our meditation audios. But then there's other things that you'll do in your life just naturally that you migrate towards that make you feel those feelings anyway. So I'd recommend do those things even more so that you can feel those feelings even more. And then very soon your ideal reality is going to show up as well.
Incredible. And then we've got then for Patrick's example, he really felt that it was the travel that he really wanted to do. And I know from your experience, you have that as well, this real underlying feeling of, I need to travel, and that fuels the business, right?
Yeah, what's interesting, and that's our point 3, is Patrick, he felt compelled to go traveling, but when he looked back after his travel for a year, his sabbatical, he calls it, it was effectively research. So as he was staying at all the different resorts around the world and having these amazing experiences and not so amazing experiences, he was actually observing what he did and didn't like about certain things in the travel space. So in his case, the resorts weren't up to scratch, but what he did is, and this is really interesting for the outliers out there too, is if there are things that you don't like, flip them to what you do like, or you would prefer they were. And so he was doing that in relation to observing all these experiences and resorts and retreats, etc., with an eye to creating his own unique product, being Raiwasa Resort. So just by doing the travel process allowed him to get the research on all the things he didn't like, to flip them to what he did like, and it's allowed him to win 2 of the world's best 6-star boutique hotel awards 2 years in a row, which incidentally, his main target market there is CEOs, entrepreneurs, and C-suite execs. And one thing he really, I guess, is his point of difference in his resort, is he gives these CEOs, entrepreneurs, and C-suite execs a life-changing transformational experience in a week-long stay at Raiwasa that he essentially got by traveling for a year. But he's essentially giving them that in a week or so, that they come and stay at Raiwasa, so that they go away with a total life transformation. And it was all born out of observing all of the things that he'd seen on his travels.
And you were there and you experienced that yourself.
Well, absolutely. Honestly, when we first drove in the drive, you can't see the ocean. It's kind of blocked by the resort. As soon as you come around the corner, it's the most mind-blowing view. And it drops away like probably about 100 meters down to the ocean. So you're way above it. But there's just this, I mentioned it in the episode, there's a wall of tranquility that hits, and it's just total inspiration, just mind-blowing.
Incredible. Yeah, I think Fiji seems to be a place I need to put on my bucket list after watching this episode. If
you haven't been, Kay, I first went there when I filmed Golf Getaway, and then we took a tournament back there and a tour the year later, and I've been back a few times since. It's just mind-blowing.
Amazing. So then for the next point, it's about travel. And Patrick mentions that, he went on this year-long travel adventure, which also then built him, not just for what he wanted to do in his resort, but as a person and as a CEO and as an entrepreneur, having all these different experiences and meeting all these different people, then really strengthened his own inner self.
Yeah, he talks about the year off as a absolute transformation for his life, and highly recommends it to other entrepreneurs as a way of, I guess, growing. Because as you travel, you're experiencing all the new locations, the cultures, the experiences that you're immersing yourself in. And you can't help but not be the same person that when you left versus when you come back. It's just, I guess it's like Einstein talked about, you can't solve a problem from the same space that created it. So traveling allows you to see things from a different perspective. And I'm not saying that you're traveling because you've got a problem and you want to see it from a different perspective, but it allows you to, I know when I go away, even if it's for a long weekend and you change location, you realize, your life up until there, you can see it from a different perspective, and you can see from that is the modifications that could be made, etc., so that you can get an even better outcome. So Patrick's just a massive fan of travel, obviously. Now he's an advocate being in the tourism industry. But yeah, for transformation, travel, you can't beat it. And obviously with Golf Getaway and Outlier, I can attest to that as well.
And I guess for people who can't travel, meditation's also, it's not quite the same, but at least that's a way of kind of getting away from your daily life and going inwards and changing the perspective that way.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I did a 10-day meditation retreat once, and it was like the seventh wonder or eighth wonder of the world for me. That's how I describe it. It was like a roller coaster every day, but it was just, I can't explain it. It was profound, right? And so meditation is one way of traveling, internal travel. But another way is obviously virtual reality. And I know the metaverse is coming, so that's going to be a pretty cool way of doing it. But yeah, it's just an amazing tool that you can do internally or externally.
So do you want to talk us through the next point about sorry, I'm going to repeat this again, about building a business that's about an infinite game. What do you want to elaborate on that? Yeah,
so I guess in a nutshell, a lot of entrepreneurs or fly-by-nighters, let's call them, think that business is a get-rich-quick scheme. So for Patrick, his whole philosophy on business is treat it like an infinite game. Treat it like getting married. There is no back door. There's no exit that you can jump out of when all of a sudden things aren't going great. So what it really means to Patrick is to build a long-term legacy. And you do that with the plan before you even start. And preferably, and this is why we talk about values, a legacy that's a win-win or a fair exchange of value between yourself and your customers. And Patrick mentions the first step to doing this is to create, which sounds bizarre, but to create safety or assurance and trust for your customers. So whenever you meet someone for the first time, the mind will always go to, is that person safe? So the further away they are, the more safe you feel because you've got room to move if you have to. But the closer they get, it becomes more intimate. So your subconscious mind is working out at the time, is this person a threat? So he's talking about this as creating a system that people feel safe, that they'll be able to flourish in, and that they're not going to be punished in. And this obviously applies to staff, it applies to your clients, etc. So he was really an advocate of setting up a business model that takes away the risk for the customer or the staff member and ensures instant trust. So for a customer, it might be knowing that they won't lose their money or they might have a bad experience. So it's important to show them that you see them, that they belong there in your business or your community or in your team, that you care for them and that you want to help them. And so two easy ways to do this in business, obviously you could use maybe a money back or even a money back guarantee or a results guarantee. So e.g., if I don't achieve this result for you, then I'll give you, whether it's your money back or I'll give you something else. But also using things like testimonies and encouraging your potential customers to speak to past clients to see, what their experience was, etc. So that all helps in building that trust in the process without them even having been to where you're going. It's really interesting. I've just joined a community in the last month that I feel is fantastic, but some of the stuff seems too good to be true. And so part of me is kind of like, I don't know if I trust this group, you know what I mean? And so I've asked them to give me more information. Let me speak to certain members. Can I put questions and into the group forums, etc., to get other people's answers, just to allow me to get my head around the lay of the land of the group, and then also to build my own trust. So it's interesting, I've had a first-hand experience of that in the last month, but obviously by testimonies, by speaking to others, having some form of guarantee so you don't feel like you're locked in if it's not working for you, it helps to alleviate that.
And it also reminds me, I think it was in one of Stephen Covey's book where he talks about, ultimately before people pass on, what they really want is to have a legacy. That's really what we all want. We want to leave a legacy behind. And I think that not only comes with, what you give to the clients or the safety that you provide, but that's also the person that you are. That gives that kind of safety. If you have like the values and you give these things because you are that person and you embody that person. And then when you do pass on, that is the legacy. Like, oh, that was such a great guy. He made me feel safe. He made me this. We had such a great time. Or the work that we did together was fantastic. So this is about your personal, who you are as a person, leaving the legacy.
Yeah, it's good, right? It's like, so all my impressions of Patrick was I resonated with him because he does things well, right? He's all or nothing. So if he's not going to do it, he won't do it. But if he does, he's going to give it his all, which reminds me of me. And so he's in alignment, right? You can see he's got those standards, which we mentioned earlier, and those values. And, he's just an embodiment of them. So the legacy that he leaves is not only in the physical world, but it's in the memory world. When he's not going to be here, people will, if you said Patrick Janin, they'll go, oh yeah, what an amazing guy, because, and they'll obviously articulate what some of those keys were. And that leads me to the final thought, Kay, is to become the best in the world in your business, which Patrick has become twice in the 6-star resort space. His advice is to see how many experiences you can create or give to your customers that have them saying, wow. So how much value can you give them? And he talks about not worrying about the price of your offering, but how much value you can give. And when you do that, the power of repeat business and then word of mouth referrals from giving so much value will be profound. So that the living out of your values and providing that value as often as you can will create so much more value to you in the financial sense and the customer sense, and just the, I guess, general satisfaction as an entrepreneur sense. So for the outliers that are out there, have a think about your business and where that can be for you. So we're going to go through a process in a minute with Kay, but there's two forms of value. There's internal value and external value. But we have one of our philosophies is your external reality is a reflection of your internal reality. So everything starts internally first through our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And so values are a combination of those. So what's really important is to have a think about, and you can follow along with Kay shortly in the meditation, is list your key values or your core values, and then say, how do I want to articulate or express those in the physical world, in my business, in my life, etc. And so obviously in Patrick's case, he's done that on a deeper level. He's been very clear on what they are. And then those values have become standards that he keeps himself accountable to on a daily basis, that ultimately everyone who experiences him and his creations will feel that reciprocation of value in themselves. So list them for yourself, write them down, and then start adding them to your operation manual, your marketing plan, any sales letters, etc. And then obviously and ultimately take action on them that are in alignment, or actions that are in alignment with the outcomes of the values that you've set forth, because the benefits will be profound from a repeat business and a word of mouth referral business. That ultimately, if you're doing a great job, you probably don't even need to do any advertising once that's up and running.
Yeah, I totally believe in this too. Incredible. There's one thing that I think one of the favorite things, not quite on that topic, but I just get into my mind from the episode, is how Patrick relates to entrepreneurship also as riding waves, being a surfer. And I'd like to mention that because I found that such a powerful metaphor that he mentioned.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting one. You know, we talked about the wealth dynamics square in our first podcast, which creators, there's a wealth profile being creator. I'm a creator. Patrick's a creator. We are very, very intuitive, have an amazing sense of ideas and imagination, etc. But often we have really bad timing. And then the opposite wealth profile to us are traders. And traders have a really good sensory ability to have their ear to the ground and time things. Like a good example is stock market traders, who they know how to trade based on what they're observing at that present moment. Us creators, not so much. We think ideas at any moment can come out of nothing, which they can, but they should be working straight away, and that's not always the case. So, you know, Patrick talks about that. He says he's come up with the best ideas, but at the wrong time. So it's important to not get frustrated, I guess if we use the surfing analogy, if you don't catch that wave, just know there's another one coming. There's infinite amount coming. You've just got to be in the right place at the right time to catch that wave, as any good surfer will tell you.
Yeah, incredible. Well, I'm very excited to do this meditation today on values. So I'm ready when you are, Andrew.
Awesome. So essentially, okay, we've talked about multiple times. So with our first session with yourself was around vision. And then we had the actions you needed to take, and then you had what it's going to look like as if it already existed. And we had some resistance come up, and part of that was resisting your fitness and everything. But this is taking it to the next level, saying now we're ready to, in addition to our vision for our business, is we want to tune into the feelings that the customers are going to feel once they leave our experience of our business, right? So there's two parts to this. We're going to talk to you about your internal values. We'll use a meditation for that. And obviously, if you're listening, you can follow along. And then we're going to go to so that's our internal values. And then we're going to project that as to the outward world or the physical world. And we're going to talk about external values. So those are the experiences that your customers will feel. And we're going to future project that onto our customers based on our internal feeling of how we know they'll feel, right? So as always, Kay, I want you to close your eyes for me. I want you to take 5 deep breaths. We close our eyes, so we go internal, and we take the deep breaths so we can relax and start tuning in. Okay. And as you do that, because you're good at this, obviously, if you're not so good or you're new to this process, it takes a little bit longer. We've got meditation audios. I'll put a link down below here for you if you want to access them. But Kay, somewhere in your body or in the room or outside of the room are your core values. Where are they right now? And you'll feel them.
I feel them around the top of my head.
Okay, cool. So I want you to put all your attention there, and I want you to start breathing as if it doesn't work like this, but pretend that all your breath's going up to the top of your head, and continue to do that until I say otherwise. Okay, what color are your values?
Red.
What shape are your values?
Doesn't feel like a shape, it just feels like a blanket.
That's good. So that's a shape, right? What temperature?
Warm.
What texture?
Flat. Fuzzy.
Yeah. What's the emotion associated?
Passion.
Awesome. So is passion one of your values?
Yes.
Okay, so I want you to tune into that feeling and I want you to feel it as much as you can. So on a scale of 0 to 10, what would it be right now? If 10 was the most passion you could feel?
6.
Cool. So I want you to try and bring it on to a 10 if you can, because it's a great feeling to have, right? And the more you can feel it, the more likely it is to show up in your external reality. So take a nice deep breath in as you feel it as much as you can. And feel it even more. And even more. And even more. Okay, so Kay, I want you to keep feeling it, but for the viewer's sake or the listener's sake, if you're hearing this, you might have your own value that's come up, and usually there's more than one value, right? But what we're going to do for the sake of this recording is, Kay, we're going to now take this to the external world, okay? And we'll come back and see if there's any other internal values shortly. So I want you to tune into this passion value for me. Have you got it?
Mm-hmm.
Scale of 0 to 10.
I think I'm at 10.
Cool. Okay, so I just want you to ask passion, right? It's got a message for you. So I want you to ask passion. You're essentially going to say, show me what the external reflection of passion looks like for my customers. And they would say what? Or it would say what?
Dedication.
Yeah, so your dedication?
My dedication to them.
Yeah, nice. And your dedication to them will give them what? How are they going to come away? What's their experience going to be with after experiencing your passionate dedication?
I can't think of the word. I have a vision. I don't think of the words. One moment.
So you'll see something.
I see happiness. I just see that peace, I guess.
Perfect. So what you've done in the meantime is also articulated 3 more values, right? So happiness, peace, right? And what the other one? Just skipped my mind with the first one after passion. Dedication, right? So there's 4 values that are important to you, right? So for the viewer's sake, the more Kay can feel passion, dedication, oh my God, I've lost them again. The other 2?
Happiness and peace.
Happiness, that's crazy, yeah? So happiness and peace, then the more she tunes into that, she'll start getting intuition and impulses as to what that will look like for her, that then she can project outwardly, that then part of her business starts to, her customers to start having those experiences. So, Kay, if we were to go to, if you just embodied all of those 4 right now for me, where are they? If you collectively just said my 4 values, where are they now? Are they on top of your head or somewhere else?
They are, I feel my throat and my stomach at the same time.
Okay, deep breath in. Into your throat and your stomach, which is a priority. You'll feel one more than the other.
Throat.
Okay, tune into your throat, breathe into it, feel these feelings. So we talked last week or last time in our last podcast about your vision, and it revolved around a beach, right? And finishing a workshop or some kind of event for people, right? And they were pretty much feeling these feelings, weren't they?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you'd be doing to help give these people these experiences and just see if anything pops for you?
It just feels to me like really embodying actually what Patrick has been saying, you know, providing that service and value and just making sure everybody has the best experience, and seeing happy faces and seeing people experiencing that gives me more passion and fire.
Fantastic. So with those 4 values, do you think you could set them as a standard that every day you kind of use as a benchmark that you assess yourself against? Did I do that today, or did I not? And if not, can I improve?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah. And do you feel if you weren't to live up to those, well, if you were not to live up to those values today, how would you feel?
I know this one. I feel deflated.
Yeah. So it's good. It's really good, right? So if you're feeling deflated at any point, you could literally pull out your values and go, am I being passionate? Am I being happy? Am I being dedicated? Am I being peaceful? And it's a pretty good gauge that you wouldn't be, right? Because if you were, you wouldn't be feeling deflated. So again, it's just another good, feelings are fantastic as reference points, right? I use them, the analogy of like a race car, that the wall are like the feelings, and some walls are good, right? You want to hit the wall and the good ones, but the bad ones, it's saying, don't come here. Focus back on the track, because that's where the good feelings are, on the track rather than the wall. The wall is like the negative feelings. The track itself is like the positive. So the wall is there to tell you, you need to adjust to be back on track. Does that make sense? So
it does make
the reality is, Kay, whether you know right now what the external projection of these values are or not, doesn't matter as much as feeling the feelings associated with them as often as you can, because out of those feelings, it will evolve. Your reality will evolve to allow you to feel those feelings even more. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And you may still find you do have an inkling of what it is you'll be doing that allows you to feel those feelings. But if you don't, and obviously this is more, say, for the outliers out there and the young entrepreneurs, don't be disheartened by that. I promise you, if you do this process for 21 to 28 days, so 3 to 4 weeks, amazing intuitions and visions and impulses start to come out, and even connections, right? You start meeting people, or someone randomly rings you or whatever, giving you opportunities to fulfill these feelings even more. Now, that may or may not make sense right now, but trust me, which is, or trust yourself is probably a better way to put it. Take action on the impulses that come from feeling these feelings, and just watch what magic unfolds for you. So, Kay, just on yourself, right? You're feeling these feelings now. I'd like you to continue feeling them as much as you can. But is there any advice that you have for the viewers or listeners based on what you've experienced right now?
Yes. And that, as we mentioned before, that feeling of being deflated, having that clear understanding what the values are to be able to come back to them, like you say, come back onto the path, makes that deflated feeling very temporary, because sometimes you can get that in your head and, oh, it's been a bad day, or this hasn't happened, and then maybe some like imposter syndrome comes in, and I'm not good enough, you have all these negative things start taking over. Whereas if you've got that list of values and you go, well, actually tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be passionate, I'm going to be dedicated, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be peaceful, I'm going to give that to the others, that already just changes the mood immediately. So it's just a great way of also cutting that negative self-talk off.
So for the viewers' sake, the subconscious mind is like a heat-seeking missile. It will always hit the target that you are giving it. And often we think we're giving it the right target, but subconsciously we might be giving it a negative, conflicting thought, feeling, belief. And therefore we're hitting these things that we're going, how come I keep hitting this thing all the time? But if you get clear on your values and the feelings associated with them, and you purposely choose to focus on them as often as you can, very soon your subconscious attracts to you only things that will reflect those values. So, Kay, for you, right, if you go back to the feelings of what you'd want to be feeling based on the 4 core values, you will already know what it takes for you to get back in alignment with them. So if you close your eyes again for me, okay, just take one deep breath and tune into your core values. So let's just assume you've been feeling a bit deflated, right? And now we want to bring you back on track. So I want you to ask these 4 core values, what is the next thing I need to do in order to be feeling you more often? And it would say what? Or they would say what?
Exactly what we just spoke about, doing this process more. So writing them down and reviewing them every day I've also had an intuition to start journaling again, and I think this will be a great base for that, to see how have I committed to these values today, or how will I do it tomorrow, knowing what I've got to do. So yeah, I just really kind of base my day-to-day dealings and life with the values in mind.
Yeah, brilliant. So one of the meditations we have in the Unleash Your Inner Outlier program is the intention meditation. And the reason we have that is essentially to say, like, if Kay was to use her reference of her 4 core values and she's articulated them, and every morning she looks at them and goes, how am I going to express these values today? Her intuition knows within 3 seconds the first and highest priority action she needs to take in order to feel them. So Kay's already articulated journaling is one of them. Listing them is another one, right? That's her setup. And then tomorrow when she starts doing that as her new daily routine, out of that will come the next step. And the next day will be the next step. And the next day is the next step. And if she evaluates those every day as well and says, did I live up to these values or not? What do I need to adjust so that I can? That's the next step. It'll come up. It'll say, oh, I need to call so-and-so. Or next time someone says something, I need to keep my mouth shut, or whatever. It'll say whatever, right? But your intuition knows everything, and it will only give it to you when it's needed. So the mere fact that Kay and I are even talking about this today is interesting, Kay, isn't it? That this is helping you get back in alignment, but you never knew we were going to have this conversation until 5 minutes before this whole recording, right?
Absolutely, definitely. And you know, since we've started doing these meditations, actually, there's been a lot coming up for me that way. There's been a lot of intuitive situations I'm just getting insights about, or things just pop up in my experience, and I feel I can follow these things because I know it's going to lead me to where I need to go. Even if sometimes might not feel quite right, it always goes in the right direction because I can trust my intuition more and more. So the other point I'd like to say about the advice is also doing these meditations is so powerful, and feeling these feelings, like feeling this passion and feeling this happiness. It's also such a powerful way just to snap back out of any negative things that come up, or like I say, self-doubt or whatever it is for whoever it is. Just tuning into those feelings for a moment, like it's been a few seconds, already reality changes.
Well, we talked about that as point 2, right? The power of tragedy. So you're feeling deflated now. That's not a tragedy, but it is a negative feeling, right? So it easily can derail your progress because you can get sucked into it for too long, and out of that take actions that are out of alignment with the direction you'd rather be going, right? But the quickest step to getting out of it is acknowledge, here's what I'm feeling, feel it, work out why you're feeling it. And that's where the intuition comes forward to say, hey, you actually need to do this rather than that. Take action on it, and very soon you're back in alignment with those 4 core values, right? So when we look at Patrick, again, if you haven't watched the episode, guys, I highly recommend it. It was all about values, and he's very clear on his values, and he's very clear on taking action in alignment with those values on a daily basis. So, Kay, hope you got a lot from this. Good luck with the homework, which is fun homework, really, isn't it? I mean, this stuff is effortless to sit down, tune in, and we've got guided recordings, right? So you don't even have to think, you just go along with it. And again, I'll put the link down below if you want to access the recordings and the program. And obviously, if you want more help, you can book a discovery call with us. But again, it's effortless, isn't it, Kay? Was it hard for you to close your eyes, take 5 deep breaths, and then tune in to your core values?
No, it was very easy, actually. I thought there would be a little bit more resistance, but it really came very quickly. Like immediately, I just saw this blanket of red passion around me straight away.
Fantastic. So guys, in summary, if you want to be like Patrick, Janin, have one of the best resorts in the world or one of the best businesses in the world, values, very key to get in touch with them, articulate them on a daily basis, and see what magic you can unfold.
Oh, incredible. Thank you for this, Andrew. I'm so grateful that I get to experience this with you. And as Andrew has said, we've got all the meditations and the programs are in the links below. So if there's something that resonates with you and you want to work with us or, or yourself, you can download those. So you can click on the links and download meditations, etc. And please like and subscribe to our channels on the video on YouTube, onto our Facebook, onto our Instagram. Reach out as well. We'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear your experiences from listening to our podcast or doing the meditations. If you've got any questions as outliers, we would love to connect with you. And you can do that through our social channels. So is there anything else that you'd like to end on, Andrew?
No, I think I've said enough tonight.
Amazing. Me too. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Outlier podcast. Okay. Take care, everybody.